Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, we got a fun trip around the state planned this evening. Now, we're going to make a quick stop over in Nosara, Costa Rica, because word has it, Craig and the boys had a giant mahi this week, 76 inches. Boy, that fish has got to be over 50 pounds. Also had some striped marlin, had some sailfish. We want to get that word then. We'll launch a trip around the state, starting up in Northeast Florida, checking in with Captain David Bories as he gets to the dock off his evening trip this evening, find out how the fish are biting all the way down the East Coast, through the Keys, up the West Coast, and out the Panhandle. And, you know, we're wrapping up the year, and I've got a few questions for the boys. It was a different kind of year in Florida, and some of our fishing really shocked me because it was better than I expected it to be. And some of it seems to be in a tough spot. I know we've got some crisis looming. Boy, we got too many sharks. We got too many red snapper. We've still got issues, but there are some good things happening. I got word from Lisa Fitzgerald with CCA this year. I'll have to check with Jim Ross. Listen, make sure you listen for that segment. 15,000 redfish released into Mosquito Lagoon, 6 to 8 inches long, to where they've got a good survivability rate. Boy, that's an interesting idea, so stay tuned. The Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast is brought to you this week and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats. You want the finest in flats, bay, and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. By the Castaway Hat Company. That's the hat that's helping save our seas. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. We're going to start our trip around the state this evening by checking in with Craig Sutton from Nosara, Costa Rica. All right, I know one Craig Sutton's been waiting for our call. He's a fan of big mahi just as much as I am. And Craigie, I caught one at your place that was pushing 50 pounds. You telling me somebody got a bigger one?
Dude, I think that one was, they're saying it was 76 inches. The girl I talked to, the girl Missy, that caught it, it bottomed out the 60-pound boca grip, so it was somewhere in that range. But that was a monster fish.
Oh, it was.
A monster fish, man. But the people, it was so neat. It was their first trip to Costa Rica. And I interviewed her last Friday, and she was giddy still. She really was. It was just, but you know, the fight all November's been super strong, but the last few days, it slowed up a little bit. So, you know, it's still good, but it's nothing like it was.
Craigie, I can tell you something about a real hot bite. You know what I'm going to tell you?
It's going to stop.
It's going to slow down. And I can tell you about a real bad bite. You know what I'm going to tell you? It's going to get better.
Well, for us, it lasted a full month.
Wow.
And really a little more than a full month, like a month and a week. So I was happy it lasted long. So it's settled down now into the normal, you know, summer pattern down there. We're catching marlin, sailfish, and, you know, yellowfin and mahi. I mean, what's better than that?
Nothing.
But it's not. I know my competition. I talk to them regularly. And I don't know what it is, but we have so much variety to our catches as opposed to the guys to the north of us, or the three guys to the south of us. They seem to have just one species that bites that day, but we'll have 4 or 5 mahi, a sailfish, a marlin will come in the spread, and then we'll get some yellowfin too. So, I mean, I take what God gives us and be happy, but I like the variety of our catches.
There you go. I do too, by the way. That's my very favorite place to fish. Well, that's a fantastic report. Now, you had some striped marlin around this week too. Is that right?
Yeah, we got some last week. I got a big stripe when I was down there Thanksgiving week. And I think it was the biggest I've ever caught. And I've caught many a stripe, and they're one of my favorite fish to catch. But this big one, he fought like a stripe at the beginning. Then he went into his his blue marlin mode, and then he acted like a black marlin toward the end because after he settled down about 15, 20 minutes in the fight, he went down deep. He kind of sulked, and I had to high stick him to get him to come up, and we got him up and released him. He was healthy and stuff, but he had a couple of personalities inside him. He was a different one.
Now, Craigie, I have to ask you this because I know your advanced stage. Did somebody have to take the rod from you and help you pull it up? Hey, well, for us, that'll be the day, won't it?
Yeah, I'll let the heart pound right out of my chest when that happens. But, this background noise, I'm not in a bar at half the hour. I'm in my gym lifting weights, so it's going to take a while before I go give that rod up just yet.
Yeah, I'm with you, brother. I'm with you. Craigie, as always, we appreciate the heck out of it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Absolutely. I'll be looking forward to it.
Thank you, Craig.
Ricky, I'll be on the way back from Costa Rica.
Oh, shut up.
Holler at me.
Shut up. All right, we'll talk to Craig Sutton next week. Let's get our trip around the state started tonight up in the northeast corner where we will find one Captain David Voorhees. David, how are you?
Hey, Ricky, I'm doing good, buddy. Doing good. Just getting off the water. Had a pretty good day of fishing. We got sort of, this is a time of year where those winds come in. We get those northeasters will blow for us and push a lot of water in. But, wintertime is my favorite time to fish the high tides. Right. I don't fish the low tides in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
I strictly like to fish that very last few minutes of the incoming, and right when it starts to drop that high outgoing tide all the way to about the middle of it. I try to avoid that low tide. I like to fish the first three hours of the outgoing tide.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And how was it today?
It was good. We got some beautiful flounder. We caught about a 4.5 pound flatty fishing the grass. I mean, we're flipping live shrimp and mud minnows right up. I try to tell guys, throw a little beyond into the grass and then bring it out. I'd rather them go too far than not throw far enough, because all your strikes are going to come when you're fishing those grass lines. I tell everybody, once you get 2 feet out from the grass, you might as well bring it in and make another cast. You're wasting time. All your energy should be put fishing, I would say, within 2 to 3 feet of the grass.
I see.
The edge of the grass.
I see. All right. What's your favorite
Don't waste
bait
your time on any other. That's your strike zone. Trolling motors down. It's just like bass fishing, flipping.
Uh-huh.
We're just burning the shoreline, working the ledges. A lot of short reds, Rick. I mean, we've been talking about this all year round, how many short reds there are. There's just a ton of them. But, it's good action. And we got a slam today. We've been getting slams, quite a bit this week. Red trout, flounder, the Northeast Florida slam. But to some of the flounder we've been getting this week's been pretty nice. Pretty nice flounder.
Good deal. Hey, David, I got a question for you.
Let's hear it.
Well, we're getting near the end of the year. All right.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking back on 2022. What fish outperformed your expectations this year? It seemed to me like for us offshore, we caught more mahi this year than we've caught for the last 3-4 years, which is highly encouraging. Now, it's a shadow of what it used to be, but it was better. So what inshore was better in 2022 than it has been?
Well, for us up here, and this is an easy one, this is a no-brainer, it was the hands down.
Yeah.
And I think if you ask 20 guides up here, you're going to probably get the same answer. And without a doubt, it was the flounder. We were just all giving up on the flounder. We hadn't seen any more flounder. And then this year, lo and behold, we've just been catching slews of flounder. Now, I haven't heard anything as far as what's going on commercially, how they're doing and stuff like that. I don't want to know that. It's depressing to me. But anyway, a lot of the guys have reported, good numbers of flounder. And what really makes me happy, Rick, it's not that we're seeing a bunch of big ones, but we're seeing a lot of small ones. And that means, that, to me, I like to see those. I probably released twice as many flounder this year with the 14-inch slot, than the ones I've kept.
I agree. I'm
Yep.
sure I've released 2 out of 3 this year, and the third that I kept this year was a higher number than the third that I kept last year at 13 inches. So I think I've actually kept more fish with it being 14 inches than I did. Wasn't it last year it was 13?
I think it changed. Yep. Well, they changed it just recently, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we're doing better at 14. I'm optimistic about the future of flounder. I think we need to tweak a few things.
The closure didn't bother me. The closure really didn't bother me that much. I mean, I'm not a super big flounder fisher. It didn't bother me one bit. I wish the commercial guys were also closed for 6 weeks, but that's not going to happen. But it really didn't affect me that much.
Good deal. Cap, as always, we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
You know where I'll be, Ricky. Tight lines, buddy.
Captain David Voorhees, thank you, my dear friend. Yes, it's finally cooling off, and that means the water's cooling off too. And just like the great fish always do, the biggest and the baddest of so many species we fish for will soon be holding in deeper water in an attempt to warm up. You name it. If it feeds deeper in the water column, it cannot refuse to D.O.A. terrorize. It dives straight down and crawls across the bottom with an action that no deep feeder can resist. Whether it's a crappie hanging deep under some lily pads or a tarpon rooting around the bridge pilings, D.O.A. makes a size and color terrorize that they just can't say no to. Flashing that big bright eye in front of any bottom-feeding game fish is just unfair. Maybe that's why they call D.O.A. lures the unfair advantage. Now, let's head down to East Central, in fact, down around the Rockledge area, and check in with my buddy Jimmy Ross. Jim, how are you?
Doing fantastic this week, Rick.
Good. Hey, we've had kind of a calm ocean here for a few days.
And unfortunately, I was off those few days. So
Ow.
It's I'm supposed to be back again this week, the next couple of days, and it's going to kick right back up to 4 to 6 or 5
sure
to 7.
Is. Yep.
Yeah, so I missed my window of opportunity, but it is what it is. I had other things planned for those days, and we got those accomplished. So, life is not all that bad.
No, it's not. Not if you're us, buddy. We cheated the system. There's no doubt about that. Tell me what's been going on offshore your coast there.
It's been kind of interesting. We haven't had a great bite, but we have had some pickup in the offshore game. The water is dirty out to about that 130 or 140 foot zone right now. But outside of that, the grouper bite has been pretty good for the guys that have been, getting out to that 180 to 240 foot stuff. So the deeper wrecks and obviously the ledges and the steeples and cones of that Okalina bank of coral has been really popular for the guys to get out on. There's some amberjack out there as well, and I'm getting some reports of a wahoo and a sailfish and a tuna once in a while swimming around out there that guys are trolling up. So, overall, there's been a little bit of a pick out there to mess with, just not anything concentrated here the last week or so.
All right, how about inshore?
Inshore, it's a little bit better. Snook bite went from epic to horrible to now they're at least starting to cooperate a little bit again. You can get 2, 3, sometimes 5 on a trip. Around the jetties, especially down at Sebastian and Canaveral, they seem to be hitting pogies and croakers. Now, up to the north, though, the snook that are still holding around the Ponce Inlet area, because our water temperature is so warm, we've still got, Ponce Inlet snook are still a viable option. But up there, they seem to be hitting pilchards or pinfish better. So there's just a variety of baits that you're going to use depending on what part of the region you're in. But overall, a croaker is probably the easiest thing to put down in front of them and get bit on a consistent basis. Jumbo shrimp, especially on the outgoing nighttime tides, has also been very popular for the guys down at Sebastian Inlet that are fishing off of the catwalk.
Jim, I would guess, without knowing better, those live jumbo shrimp, they're probably freelining them, aren't they?
Yeah, or just, we've had this full moon, so the current's been ripping. The guys are using a little bit of weight. They'll get a big split shot and put it about 2 feet out in front of the shrimp. and kind of use it almost like a Carolina rig, if you will.
Sure.
But just enough weight that it doesn't touch the bottom. And they're pitching it. The guys on the catwalk are pitching it up current and then walking it back to them, picking it back up, and then pitching it back up current again, so that it's swimming in a forward fashion, coming out with that outgoing tide. Running, you can even use a lightweight jig head if you can find a small, like a 1/8 ounce jig head or a 1/16 ounce jig head with a 3/0 or 4/0 hook in it. That will act as a keel to hold the shrimp upright so that it doesn't spin in the water as it's swimming forward. But you want to go in the front, in the bottom of it, and come out the top. Sort of bring the point of the hook out by where the horn connects to the base of the shell. Bring it right about there, and that'll keep it from spinning. It'll act like a keel.
Gotcha. It's outstanding. Hey, let me ask you a question. We're getting near the end of 22, as you know. We close in on Christmas here. Jim, looking back over this year, give me a fish that has outperformed expectations, that actually seemed to get a little better in the Space Coast this year.
For me, it's got to be the snook.
Okay.
Our snook fishery has continued to get better and better over the years. We've seen our redfish fishery decline. We've seen our trout fishery decline. But, last year and the year before, I would say that it was the black drum. But this year, I would say it's snook, because you can catch snook from the flats of the Indian or Banana rivers to the canal systems to places like Haulover Canal. So it doesn't. What I'm saying is, it doesn't matter if you're a land-based angler or if you're a boater. There are places on the Space Coast where you can consistently target snook on a regular basis, almost year-round at this point, and have good success with fish anywhere from 20 to 40 inches.
Wow, that's good. Now, Jim, have snook become a 12-month fishery for you down there?
They have. Now, in the wintertime, we haven't had any cold to speak of yet. Now, we're going to start getting colder as we move closer to the new year.
Sure.
So what you're going to see is those fish are going to be laid up on southern exposed banks, and anything that is on a leeward edge from that north wind and has a southern or southeastern exposure to it, where they can slide out of some deeper water and get up tight to those banks and lay up there. Especially if there's mangroves or some kind of an overhanging, branch of a tree, they can get up in there and they'll lay in between the branches where the sunlight is shining down through the branches, and they'll sun themselves. Now, they'll start off and they'll be black as coal when it's cold. But as they start to warm up, they'll get a little color to them, and you'll start to see the silver and the yellow come out, especially in their pec fins. And when you see that, especially around midday time frame, when the sun is at its apex, and you start to see that those fish in there start to get a little color in them, that's when you're going to find that they're going to eat. Now, a lot of times in the winter, the snook they don't eat all day. It's only going to be a short window. In fact, it can only be 15 or 30 minutes on some days. But in that midday period, just keep watching them. If you're cruising a shoreline and you're catching trout out of the center of a canal, let's say, or a dredge hole, just keep looking at those fish that are laying on those shorelines under those branches. And when you see them go from black to getting a little color, that's the time to specifically target them. Your window is going to be short, but you can catch sometimes 2, 3, or 4 of them, even in January and February.
Very, very interesting. Jim, we appreciate the heck out of it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I look forward to it, Rick.
I do too, as always. Captain Jim Ross. Now, let's head on down to Miami to speak to the king of Miami charter boats, one Ray Rocher. Captain Ray, how we doing?
We're good.
Good.
I just got off the water. Beautiful, flat, calm day. I didn't get seasick. Life is good.
It never gets too calm to scare me, Cap. I'll tell you that.
That's right.
But how was the fishing?
We primarily bottom fish. There was so little wind you couldn't fly a kite today, and our guys wanted meat. So we went and we trolled to the snapper spots, and we caught some yellow eyes, vermilions, one mutton, and then we went offshore and caught our 3 tile fish, golden tile, and they were biting really good. And then coming back in like 500 feet of water, there was a school of manta rays chasing each other. I don't know if they were breeding or what. Through and through, but there was nothing on them.
Oh.
But it was quite a show. They got right up against the boat, and there was like 3 males chasing a female. They did it for 15 minutes around the boat. I shut the boat off. They were I think she was hiding under the boat. It was crazy. And I'm talking 10 foot across. I mean, they were big, beautiful things, and it was shiny calm. It was National Geographic. But then we went in shallower and hit some rough bottom and dropped pilchards and long leaders and caught a nice big, like, I don't know, 12, 15 pound yellowjack and a scamp grouper. And then it was time for them to go pick up their kids from school. So,
son, that's a fine day. That is a fine day. Ray, it's so funny you mentioned those manta rays. It reminded me of a story. I was trolling off of Fort Pierce in a sailfish tournament one time, pulling ballyhoo, and I looked, and there was a manta ray upside down that if once I looked at my watch, he followed me for 7 more minutes.
Wow.
And that was the weirdest thing. He was down maybe 10 feet, but all you could see was white, and it was obviously upside down. And I guess he thought the bottom of the Dos Amigos was kind of cute, you know?
Well, it was one of those rare Australian manners.
That could be it. That could be it.
Southern Ocean. Yeah.
That's it.
They swim up down in the northern hemisphere.
Hey, I got a question for you. All right, this year, okay, as we reach the end of the year, next week I'm going to ask you the opposite of this question. But this week, give me a fish that you felt like outperformed expectations this year. You had more than you thought you'd have.
Well, bait's been really good lately.
Hey, you're not the only one to say that. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing. I think net ban, that's instrumental, and just sounds like they're trying harder and harder to limit the mass extermination of pogies and menhaden and so on. And I just think anything we can do to protect our bait stocks is really a vote for better fishing in the future.
Yep. Did you feel like, because I know up my way, I felt like we had a few more mahi this year. Did you feel that way or no?
I wouldn't say it was better than average year here, but we had lots of the different reef fish were better than average. The yellow eyes and vermilions there are a lot of young fish, which is great. Great recruitment, and there's still, you have your good days and bad days on pretty much everything. So I'm not too alarmed by low numbers on anything that comes to mind right away. But, the bait stocks is something I really pay attention to. Like, for instance, in October, November, we get ballyhoo up here on the reef. And while the ballyhoo up on the reef, we get big dolphin in 30 feet of water, up to 20, 30 pounds. A lot of just heavy lifters and gaffers chasing the ballyhoo. And then sails are up there. Sometimes you see muttons chasing the ballyhoo. And, that's just a great example of, if you chum, they will come. If you have the food, they will, the fish, food is the greatest driving force in the ocean.
Well, I've always wondered if it works the same in the ocean as it does in the woods. I know if we have a great acorn crop, and we keep plenty of feed in our feeders, that our does will drop twins.
Correct.
And if we have no food, they won't drop at all. Yeah. Is it the same in the ocean?
I think you're 100% right.
Okay.
Feed them, and their recruitment is high. It's really simple. Really not complicated.
Well, I hope we're right. Cap, I appreciate it as always. We will talk to you next week if you will be so kind.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Ray.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahanoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Our thanks to Ray Rocher for a great Miami report. Now, gonna hop over to the West Coast and find out what's going on with Captain Steve Dahl in 10,000 Islands. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm going to tell you why today.
Because Santa Claus is coming.
Well, yeah, that's the obvious. And probably because you're going to drop Carrie Underwood off of my house instead of yours, but that's for a different day.
Never. Better leave that alone. She'll be real tired when she gets here.
Too funny. No, Christmas game is coming early for us. We're having this, what I like to call Chamber of Commerce weather. I mean, it is just unbelievable. Light winds, just enough ripple on the water. I mean, just days you dream about. It's been sustained. We got a big cold front heading our way in, probably about 3-4 days. But this weekend should be incredible. I mean, we should probably be in still some good shape in the next week. We get socked with it. So that front's coming. Pre-front bite should be good. It's being steady every day. Water temperatures are in good shape. So the redfish has been kind of the tail on the inshore bite. Our snook are starting to wane a little bit, but we got them probably a good 45 days later than we normally do. They're still around, just not seeing any of those big fish. But the reds are really starting to bunch up. It's really good. It's almost like an October bite. Getting all different sizes and patches, of fish, but it's not uncommon to go and knock out 6 to 8 fish in a spot and then move on and kind of do the same. So it's kind of been a weird deal though as far as what they're eating day to day. Sometimes they want filtered, sometimes they want just a shrimp on the bottom. Cut ladyfish has all been in the mix. So I've been kind of playing with 2-3 rods every time out, just to kind of see what they're preferring that day and kind of go from there. But it's once you figure out what they're chewing on, man, they're really, and they're aggressive. They're really, you don't have to be in spots long. I kind of fish and you make a milk run of spots, and it's all 15-20 minute spots, and everything is on the outside points. So forget about the pockets, forget about the flat facings of the island, and just get on these points because they're all over it. So that's been the inshore bite right now. And plenty of trout around, and some snook. So I mean, you could definitely make a multi-species day of it. It's been pretty good.
I got a quick story for you. You and I've been friends long enough that you'll really appreciate. I am getting really old to still be doing what I'm doing, and that is running 70 miles every morning in my 27-foot boat before we put over when we get to blue water fish. And we've had that same stretch of weather you're talking about. And last week I spent all week on Wednesday getting ready for the trip. And all day on Wednesday getting ready for the trip.
Yep.
And I'm thinking late in the afternoon, I'm rigging baits, I'm finishing up that, and I'm thinking, you know what? This might be it. I mean, I'm exhausted, and we haven't left. We're not leaving the dock till tomorrow. I was hauling ice, and I was just worn out. And I got a little sleep and got up about 3:30 and got after it, and we put the lines in. We put the lines in the water. Tuna everywhere. Okay.
Nice.
In an hour and 15 minutes, we caught a double of black fins, then we caught a double of mahi right away, nice gaffers. Then we caught a triple of black fins. We'd been trolling an hour and 15 minutes, and I said, you know what, guys? That's it. let's go catch some handful of triggerfish. And we went and caught a dozen triggers in a grouper, and And I put her on pilot and headed home, and I'm thinking, all right, if this weather holds tomorrow, could I get fuel tonight? Can I do a back-to-back?
It is,
Yeah.
and we all think the same. It's crazy.
It's intoxicating. You can't not. It's just crazy. As much as
it's exactly what I love, because at any given time, if you've been doing this long enough professionally, you hit your walls, and the reality is, there's peaks and valleys to being a charter boat captain. I always tell guys, it seems like every 5 years you kind of hit a little bit of a wall and a lull, and it's days and stretches like this that absolutely reinvigorate what you're doing. And the same could be said for recreation guys too. You might go out, you might have 4 or 5 days, and your time's limited when you're not doing this every day, but you might have a couple weekends in a row where you had a really sore bite, or it's been awesome, and you have that one banner weekend, you and your son or something like that, and it just makes it all, you think you're on top of the world. It's the greatest stretch of highs and lows in my life is fishing.
Hey, let me ask you a question. We're wrapping up the year. God, we only got a few more podcasts to go, a couple of more.
Yeah.
What fish has outperformed what you expected to catch this year? What's been a pleasant surprise?
Probably the redfish, to be honest with you. I'm sorry, let me back up. Snook.
Okay.
Glaringly snook. Just because of the pure size of fish. I think the water temps really helped us. As high as they were, they really stuck around in the backcountry, made it a lot more accessible. We didn't have to go out to nearest our wrecks and reefs to kind of get those mature fish. They're out there. There's no doubt about it. But, we had a really, I was a little scared after, Hurricane Ian that those fish would be gone, and they weren't. Even in dirty water, we were catching them. So, the first half of the year we had them too, just not the size, which was fine. Because it was, cold water. We just generally don't have, numbers like we did in the first half of the year. In the second half of the year, we got the size. So it's, I'm not sure what that is attributed to be quite honest with you. I think, the sustainability is maybe the water. The only common denominator I can find is the water temps are a little bit higher than they have been, and that's probably keeping them around a little bit. And, this last 60 days, our weather has just been fantastic. And I think that's just keeping those backwaters warm, and they're comfortable. They're not going into their winter haunts way back up in creeks. And I would have to say it's the snook that's kind of surprised me this year. And a lot of people I think can agree.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, buddy. Hey, listen, we appreciate it. I've appreciated it all year and ever since we've been doing this. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Always. Can't wait.
Oh, real quick, before you go, have you checked in with Brother Stamper? How's Greg doing?
Greg's doing good. He's his boat should be ready, I think, probably end of January. And he'll be at our marina now going forward, which we're real excited about. We kind of share some water. I do some stuff up in Estero and, obviously the 10K stuff, but he'll be up in our southern end of Estero Bay, and it'll cut his commute time down by half from home. So he's happy, but he's chomping at the bit. He's going to be running one of our boats here, starting Christmas week, to get back in his groove. He's doing good. He really is.
We sure will welcome having him back on the air when he gets back on the water.
Yeah, can't wait.
Steve, we appreciate it so much, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep, absolutely.
Captain Steve Dahl from 10,000 Islands. The year was 1953 when one of the true pioneers of big game fishing just hung it up. No, it wasn't any of our podcasters. It was none other than Ernest Hemingway. I just don't want to do it anymore, he's credited with saying. The tackle has become so sophisticated, the fish just don't have a chance. Can you imagine walking him through the aisles of Strike Zone Fishing and showing him the latest and greatest from Shimano? Can you imagine handing him a Saragusa spinner that weighs less than his bait did and could put more torque on a rampaging tuna than the giant old reels of his day? Now, Ernest, I'm afraid you left us way too early. The fights with great fish still go on today, and sometimes we still get beat. But if I were a sea monster of your day, I think I'd still rather do battle with you than face the tools that Shimano has stocked in strike zone fishing 68 years later. Our thanks to Steve Dahl for giving us the 10,000 Islands report. Now let's hit West Central and one Captain Ray Markham. Ray, please tell me that red tide's going away.
Well, I can't really tell you it's going away. At the moment, it seems to be kind of at a standstill. My understanding is that it is somewhat moving north. We have some north wind predicted coming up in the next couple of days with a cold front that's going to be on the way down south here. So it may move it some more. But on a real positive note, a bunch of speckled trout have moved into the area.
Really?
So,
now, the red tide's not affecting them?
Well, here's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if this algae bloom is pushing fish because they have a bloom of red tide offshore 6 miles and more. And I'm wondering if the red tide from offshore is pushing some fish into the estuary.
That could be. Yeah.
A lot of the fish have been small, but there again, there haven't been a lot of slot fish. But on the other hand, they've seen some huge trout that we haven't seen in ages. So, and on top of all that, we had a wave of kingfish come blowing through here this week. It is really screwy, and, and I think the kingfish can probably be, rectified with, we had a little cold front that is pushing south, and whatever's left over up in the Panhandle or Big Bend area maybe has been pushing south here. So that's all I can think about that. But the guys have been absolutely wrecking gag grouper. They've been catching some red grouper and a few others, as well as tons and tons of hogfish.
Ray,
go ahead.
I got to tell you, I was really, really surprised when the hogfish fishery started. I had the misconception that it was very complicated. I got to fish yesterday with Jared Roderick from Young Boats out of Crystal River.
Awesome.
Holy, those things are a blast, Ray.
Oh
Yeah, they got a really weird mouth, though. I mean,
They do.
They do. But you know what? I mean, we're just now starting to get into the better time of the year for hogfish. They seem to be much more prolific in the nearshore waters as we get cooler. And they're catching them anywhere from 30 feet on out. 30 to 70 seems to be a sweet spot for, legal size fish. But once you get beyond that, they're even bigger. So it's all good. There's some good stuff to go around. And we've had another wave of Spanish mackerel right along with the kingfish. So little bit of everything. Still some redfish in the back country. Some big snook have been caught up the rivers this week. I mean, 40-plussers, 40-plus pounders.
Ooh, that's big fish.
And you know what that's like.
Yeah, real quickly, have you seen much for a fish kill yet?
Not so much up around Pinellas. The very south end of Pinellas, a few spots around Tierra Verde, Fort DeSoto, have seen a few fish blowing in, but there again, with dead fish, you can't really tell where they were killed.
Yeah.
Most fish don't float, or any other body doesn't float for several days after they die, and when they start building up gases and float. So those fish could have been killed down south, and with a little bit of southerly breezes blowing up this way. So, we just kind of have to sit and wait and see, and put our hands together, get on our knees at night, and pray like heck.
That's right. I'm with you on that, Cap. Ray, we appreciate it so much. Real quick before you go, give me a fish. We're reaching the end of 22. Give me a fish that has outperformed your expectations this year, that was a little better in 22 than you thought it'd be.
Boy, honestly, I can't really say there's been a lot of fish that have outperformed any of my expectations due to the fact that we had such a terrific fishery prior to all the red tide. I will say this, it was more than a year that I fished and did not catch a single trout. And it's promising to see the young of the year, in other words, a fish that's 12 inches or under, because that tells me they spawned last year and successfully did it. So we got something to look forward to. So
I like it. I like it a lot. Speckled trout is your fish. All right. Thank you, Ray. We'll talk with you next week if that's okay.
Yes, sir. We'll catch you later.
Thank you, Captain Ray Markham. I'll bet you don't even remember the days that all us cool kids would rub baby oil mixed with iodine to help us get even darker in the summertime. Being burnt was cool, and even if you weren't a surfing legend, you sure looked the part. Oh, man, if a bunch of us old guys paid the price for our vanity. We never knew the skin problem and health damage that awaited us. Today's fishermen have the options of being so much healthier in the sun than we ever thought of. Thanks in no small part to the Castaway Hat Company, who not only provides our podcasters with Castaway straw hats, but they make the coolest prints on the underside of the brims you ever saw. You may think your Bimini top or T-top blocks the sun, but as an awful lot of us OGs can tell you, you can't have enough protection from sun damage. Do what we do. Put on the sunblock and put on your Castaway straw hat. You'll look the part of today's best anglers, and you'll even be helping the environment. That's because for each Castaway hat sold, the Castaway Company is going to pay to have 1 pound of trash removed from our waterways. The burning Florida sun won't be raced in your skin, and believe me, when you age a few years, you'll thank us old guys with a lifetime on the water. So go to CastawayHatCo.com and get your best sun protection today. The Castaway Hat Company. They've got a hat for every adventure. Our thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report, where sounds like that red tide might be letting up a little bit. I sure hope so. All right, let's walk up into the Big Bend and check in with our buddy, Captain Kevin Lanier. Kevin, how are you?
Captain Rick.
What's going on, sir?
Hey, not a whole here and enjoying a little rain this afternoon.
Oh, no kidding. Huh.
Yeah.
I got bad news for you.
What's that?
There are 6 less gag grouper and 10 less hogfish off of your coast than there was yesterday.
Well, that's a good thing. I'm always proud to hear that we can contribute to others.
Yes, sir, you did. The Riles family thanks you immensely.
Well, on behalf of the Panhandle, we're glad to help.
Okay, buddy.
We'll do. Hey, we'll do whatever we can for you, East Coast guys.
Actually, the hogfish, we were further south than that. We're actually out of William Tony's area, but the truth is they were headed north, but they're not anymore.
Okay, good.
Tell me about your week's fishing. How's it been?
It's been really good. Actually, we had some guys out of Mexico Beach just this weekend that got into some yellowfin tuna out about 60, 70 miles. So that was exciting news for all of us.
That's real exciting.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of details, but it looks like they had a pretty good bag of tuna.
Now, let me ask you, is there much pelagic trolling that goes on 60, 70 miles off your beach?
You know, an old timer around here told me a few years ago that in November and mid-December that we have a pelagic run that's about 60 to 70 miles off the coast. And you can get out there. There's some white marlin out there. And if you find the pockets, you can pick up some fairly nice. We don't have the big girls like they do over in Venice, but there's some quality yellowfin.
I don't care about those big girls anymore, Cap. I'm almost 70 years old. They can go right on by. That's fine. Give me that little 35-pound schoolie.
Oh, exactly. That's going to taste better anyhow. You know that as well as I do.
That's the gospel now. I'm telling you, that's the gospel. Did you make any trips this week?
We made one trip this week, and we had a productive inshore time with redfish. And, the big bulls are kind of moved out. They were here for the last month or so, but there's still some quality inshore fishing with the trout and the redfish. The guys that are getting offshore, in between weather fronts. They're picking up the mangroves and the vermilion snapper. Gag grouper, we've got about another, I would say, 20 days left. Gag grouper closes for us at the end of the month. So, we're trying to get out whenever we can.
Gotcha. Yeah, not too many more days of the season now. You guys, January 1st, is anything open for you, or are you shut down for snapper and grouper until May 1st then?
Don't quote me, Captain Rick, because I've got to go. The state, they give us so much clarity in seasons and everything like that. I'm questioning whether or not red grouper opens back up on January 1st, but pretty much everything else shuts down, and we're into a vermilion fishery for probably up till March, April, when triggers will open back up and amberjack gets opened back up.
All right, let me ask you a question. Just came to my mind.
Okay.
You've got your choice between fishing the seasons that you're fishing for red snapper, or going 1 per person, 2 per boat, 365 days a year.
1 per person or 2 per boat?
Yep.
I can't support a 2 per boat.
Okay.
I could, and I don't want to get shot by my compadres up here and everything like that. But I would be willing to do that for a 365 fishing season, 1 fish per person. But I can't limit it to 2 per boat for red snapper. There's no way.
Sure, on your charter boat you really can't. If you were a wreck fisherman, you can. But being in the charter business, I certainly understand that. Hey, before I let you go, Kevin, we're almost to the end of 2022. What fish was better than you expected this year?
Good Lord. I guess for us is probably last year would have been blackfin tuna. We had the best blackfin tuna season last year we've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
This year, I would say probably our overall best, the fish that produced more than we anticipated were our mangrove snapper.
Gotcha. Okay. See, now that's
we had a
funny.
lot of good mangrove snapper days.
See, that's funny because over here, and you and I are close to being on the same latitude, and over here on the East Coast, next week the question is going to be, what fish underperformed for you this year? And for us this year, it was mangrove snapper. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, I already have the answer to that question for next week, guys. So there's no question in my mind what that answer is. So.
What's that going to be?
Gag grouper.
Really?
They underperformed this year. Yes.
I'll be darned.
Mm-hmm.
Now we caught a pile of shorts off of Crystal River yesterday. So I'm hoping they'll work their way up into your area and get big enough for you, because there are areas of the Gulf that they're doing very well on gag grouper.
Well, I think we would do very well, but we're going to have to start going further.
Yeah, that could be. More fishing pressure every day, isn't there?
That's true. Plus, I think the water temp's doing something to us, too, up here.
Hotter than it should be.
It's a lot warmer.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Kevin, we appreciate it ever so much. It's been a good season for all of us. It's been a good year for all of us. We got a lot to be thankful for, and we sure appreciate your input each and every week. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Captain Rick, I'll be back next week, and I'll be back next year. I love doing this with you guys.
Oh, we love having you. Thanks so much, Captain Kevin Lanier, up in the Northwest section of the state of Florida. Well, that wraps up our trip around the state this week. Gosh, we had a few guys that were unavailable. In fact, we had guys still coming in from offshore tonight that fished way offshore because we've had an unusual stretch of really pretty doggone good weather. Now, the front has made it to the northeast section of Florida, so we're probably going to have a week at the dock now. But, hey, it's been a great stretch, and the fish have certainly done their part. We sure hope as you get ready for Christmas, you enjoy our podcast as much as we enjoy bringing them to you. Please, if you do, and we'd so appreciate it, go on and rate us and let us know how we're doing. Subscribe to the podcast, and if you've got a question that you'd like to ask our podcasters, just drop me a note at rick@floridasportsman.com. I'll fire it right out to them, and we will get the exact area and the exact method that you're asking about. Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you this week and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum, it's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats, you want the finest in flats, bay, and offshore hybrids, you need to check out youngboats.com. By Castaway Hat Company, the hat that's helping save our seas. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors, right stuff, low price, every day. Until next week, for Florida Sportsman Magazine, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and we will see you on the rip.